Okay, so are we living through the death of expertise? That's one of the topics we're going to cover today. How did this come up? I think, Anthony, you brought this up.
Yeah, just working with people who produce lots and lots of material that they don't really know the details of, and yet it's sometimes effective. It's pretty interesting. It's like the way that the labor market is changing the skill sets that it demands.
So rabbit holing is a thing. Last time we talked about psychosis, rabbit holing, maybe a related thing. And down the rabbit hole we go. We can do amazing things. And sometimes maybe we don't need to know what we're talking about. Maybe we just need to harness the power of AI to know what we're talking about for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems the important thing is idea generation and what I call taste, which is what is a tasteful idea? Because anybody can generate an idea, but what's an idea that can actually benefit yourself or your community? Not a lot of people have that. So the first generation of producers are going to produce a lot of slop.
Yeah, and we hear that AI slop all the time. So we're going to talk about this topic. I think that'll probably be our main topic today. We're going to touch on a bunch of other topics. We do have someone new joining us today, Karen, who's a friend of mine that I've met at several AI meetups. Karen, you want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Karen, and I've been working in data science and recently in AI for past 4 or 5 years, and overall been in tech industry for over 20 years. And currently I'm working as an AI innovation and development manager at JLL. So we build AI agents. We understand the workflows for different teams and try to automate the processes and build MVPs.
Well, it's very nice to have you join us, Karen. Yeah, so Anthony and I last week, we talked a lot about AI psychosis, and we talked a lot about, we had some criticisms. We had some criticisms for AI CEOs and the AI hype cycle. And I think that, when I go back and I rewatch the content, I think that we guffawed a lot at what people are saying about AI, especially CEOs. But it is probably worthwhile to talk a little bit about where some of this hype maybe is well deserved, where some of this hype maybe is even underhyped. I certainly think that there's both going on, right? That there is a lot of AI hype. Some of it makes me roll my eyes, and some of it I'm thinking, hey guys, you should be paying attention. This is really big. This is really hot. What do you guys think? You guys see that dichotomy as well?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think certain aspects of it will be hyped, like just generally speaking, but I'm trying to identify which aspect and which can create opportunities if we figure that out, where there's excessive money being poured in and which areas are undervalued. I think AI agents, we're seeing good productivity gains based on my firsthand experience. And there is a hype about it, so that could be realistic hype. And in other areas, it could be, I don't know, model performance or coding is yet to be determined on that side. Or maybe you guys know more about that side.
Are you, Anthony?
I don't know too much from a agentic AI perspective. I don't play around with that much, but I have been playing around with image generation quite a bit, and it is making strides and improvements. Every single week, there's a new drop of something, a new diffusion model or a new way of a new workflow to connect the different models to make amazing images. So I think possibly the AI image generation side is underhyped. The video side may be a little overhyped.
For now, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I also think there's a lot of underhyped things, and a lot of people, they make the comparison between what's happening in AI today and what happened with the internet in the 90s. And I remember that because I was right there for that internet explosion. I was in the internet business in 1993 when it was a baby business, and I watched that explosion happen, and I watched the initial skepticism about its transformative power in the early years. People, and I remember the question at the time was, how is anybody ever going to make money from this? That's what people were asking about the internet back then. Nobody knew how anybody would ever get rich from the internet. And that's what the capitalists wanted to know. There's like, if it can't make me rich, it's not real. You know, it seemed like a goody two shoes type of thing, the internet. It was something for idealists, you know, who dreamed about a democratized global, you know, information network and all that stuff. And it wasn't clear that it was going to transform the economy and that it was going to have such a massive impact on people. And of course, as we all know, the skeptics were proven wrong. The internet changed society forever. And I think that AI is poised to do that. And I think it's actually already done it. Our society has already been irrevocably changed by AI. It's just that it's taking a while for us to kind of realize it.
Yeah. And it doesn't help that the AI companies, the AI boosters are making a lot of stuff up that they don't really have a lot of evidence for. It's really hard to predict what's going to hit and what's going to miss. A lot of the hits come from people just poking around and exploring without any agenda. For instance, I heard about, was it one of the coding agents or one of the coding automation companies rewrote their CMS in a very, well, they basically removed the GUI for their CMS and increased productivity tremendously because now you can use chat agents to make changes to the CMS. You don't have to click around on things. Who would have thought of that? Who would have thought like to revert back to something closer to HTML made a performance boost for the company?
Yeah, I don't think I quite understand what you mean. What do you mean, like with their CMS? What's the CMS?
So this person ran the sales and the marketing part of their organization. And marketing teams have a website that you have to update frequently. And instead of clicking around on a CMS, like a content management system, like, oh, I'm going to add a block here, I'm going to add a widget here. Why don't you just ask the AI to do it? Like, hey, I want this block to do this, and I want this widget to do that. But if the AI has to work through a graphical user interface, it's very clunky for an AI to do. But if you made it more basic, close to the metal, like HTML, then the AI could do tremendous things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I thought you were going to say was because a thing that came out late December was the creator of Claude Code. I think his name is Boris Cherny. He posted on Twitter that he hadn't written a line of Claude Code in a month because Claude Code was basically writing itself. He was basically directing Claude Code to develop Claude Code, which I think is pretty incredible. And it speaks to like some of the real impact that AI is having already. And just in the whole kind of like space of transformation, what I think, if you see right now, what's really having AI impact, and I'm not talking about necessarily the big, you know, money get rich use case, but the social impact and the technology impact of AI is all going to be around creativity, this is the first real technology that has had such a massive stimulus on human creativity. And it ties into our topic about the death of expertise, because what's happening is AI is just exciting people. It's exciting people's creative energy, and they're leveraging AI to amplify that, sometimes in weird ways. Have you seen anything like that, Karen?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, as you said, it does spark a lot of excitement about new topics. When I hear any new topic in medical or something, medical science or anything else that I know nothing about it, I go on talking with AI for 30 minutes. Even when quantum computer chips were launched, like Willow and a few others by Google and Microsoft, I asked a lot of questions to AI, and it gave me really good insights. I felt like an expert after having 30-minute conversation that would typically take reading a lot of papers, a lot of books to learn about the topic. I might not have retained that information for very long because it was quick review and then not enough revision, but attention might not be needed in future as frequently as it did in the past because things are changing so fast. So maybe that's the new future we're looking at, that our ability to comprehend information quickly and forgetting it quickly as well, so that we're ready for the new set of challenges and new way of doing things. So that might be the new future we might be moving towards. And the expertise part would be less, would contribute less to the success. The ability to learn quickly and forget quickly might be more beneficial.
Maybe. I read a couple of articles recently that talked about the return of the jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And I certainly benefited from how important jacks of all trades were in the 90s when the internet went through its growth. And I am kind of seeing that it's coming back. Like people who are good at a lot of things and at picking stuff up quickly. And, these people, they see AI and they're like, oh my God, what can I do? And they're doing it. Like, I think you've done that yourself, Karen, right? I mean, you're one of those people who put on this AI cape and said, I'm going to try to do this thing that I've never done before.
Yeah, definitely. I was deep into SQL and Python and data science models prior to AI. But AI really excited me that I can learn so many things quickly, especially with Notebook LM and a few other tools where it just generates mind maps, slides, and like video podcast. I could learn things while I'm taking a 30-minute walk in the morning by having conversation with Perplexity.
Yeah.
So definitely I've learned a lot of things, and I don't hesitate to learn about new things anymore. And even I took an international trip, as I mentioned, and my whole itinerary, where I'm going at what point of the day, was all planned by AI, and to the places I've never been. It did such a good job, and I just trusted AI and showed up at the places they want me to. And it just felt like a local person who knows most of the cities around the world with the power of AI.
Yeah, this sounds different than when screens became big, like iPads and iPhones and stuff, and people were really railing against people getting dumber. And I have millennial friends who have kids, or who have friends who have kids, and they are really worried about how dumb their kids are, how short of an attention span they have. They can't sit on a couch for more than 2 minutes without having to grab something, a phone or something like that. And they had to like keep moving from one place to another, either physically or online. But with AI, it seems different, because as long as you're curious, you can just keep finding more things out. So I wonder if it's less so of knowledge retaining, like Karandeep was saying, and more important to have enthusiasm and curiosity. And if you don't, and you just get by on the standards of yesterday, like having to know certain things and being able to accomplish X amount of things, you're going to be stuck. So like this vigor for learning is going to be much more important.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. A year or two ago, I took a job working for a company as basically a data scientist. And my job was to modernize an ETL pipeline, extract, transfer, and load pipeline, from something that was SQL based and Excel based to Databricks. And I had never used Databricks. I didn't know anything about Databricks. And I put together a scheme to do document ingestion and, data profiling and all sorts of, hygiene and, normalization of the data ingestion process, along with baselining and all that stuff, which I had never done before on a technology that I'd never worked with before. I heavily leveraged AI to help me do that. I did, if I do say so myself, an incredible job. And I still don't think I know Databricks. I pulled it off without learning Databricks, really. I probably learned more than I think I did, but I know that I didn't learn as much about it as I would have had to learn if I hadn't had AI helping me. So the question is this good and normal and simply how we do things now? Or is this a trap that we're falling into?
I think I'll be a little bit of both, or I could think of those points. I think the positives are that in a year we can do more number of projects and more variety of projects. That reminds me, sometimes I share my screen with Google AI Studio. And if I log into Databricks or any other new tool that I may not have used, it'll tell me which button to click to do what, and I'll just tell it the task, and it sees my screen, and it'll guide me with the. So yeah, definitely that's helpful. And I think I've thought about it in many other meetups. We had discussion about it too, that in a lot of the tasks we may not need to know the underlying details. Like we don't know what binary code is going, what C++ code is underneath when we do things. So we just push the buttons and it just, those buttons are getting higher level, like more summarized or going at a higher level. And eventually we just give a project to the AI and it'll do it. Right now we do the clicks on behalf of AI, but we're at the point where the AI is doing clicking as well. I think last time I checked like a month or two ago, it was at 70-80% accuracy with the browser control apps. And yeah, eventually I think that would probably take over and we'll be just human in the loop watching it if it makes a mistake. So we'll be just doing the QA or acting like a manager. And
Yeah.
it's a good thing, because if you look in the world, every engineer might become a manager, or most of the engineers might become managers, and managers have good normal functioning as well. Some engineers are worried that we won't be use a particular skill in our brain, so we might not be as smart anymore. But if you look at the managers, they have a good life as well. They have like their mental well-being is fine. Everybody transition into that type of skill will be fine. And the same kind of questions are raised back in 90s when we started using calculators and wouldn't remember the times tables or adding in our mind. And I think the society did better than before in terms of technological advancement. So that kind of optimistic thought pattern helps me sleep better at night and keeps me excited and curious about learning more about AI.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. I'm one of those people that gets excited about new things, and
Yeah.
I do worry about their downsides,
Right.
but I'm the same way. I get excited by thinking about what are the new things that I can do now that I couldn't do before. The Claude Code guy, some of the comments to his tweet were, well, then why is Anthropic still paying you then? If Claude Code is writing Claude Code, why are you still collecting a paycheck? And my first thought was, does anybody really think that Claude Code would have done what it did without Boris telling it? I mean, as I always say, there's a lot of things you can do with AI, but there's a lot of things AI can't do without us, and
Yeah.
we are driving AI to do things. And I think that's exciting, is AI as a tool for things. And I think, Anthony, you had some thoughts about, like you mentioned earlier, when a new tool comes onto the scene, you have a lot of people that get excited about this new tool, like me, like Karen, like you. But being excited about it doesn't necessarily mean being good at it.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, part of what I meant was that when a new tool enables multiplication and productivity, you're going to get a lot of products, and a lot of it is just average or worse, because you got a normal distribution, and you got some people on the right hand who are really figuring out new ways to use it and figuring out the skills required to use it better, whereas everyone else is just using it to produce the stuff that's very easy to produce, the stuff that is like, 3-word prompts. So my thinking is, you asked the question, is this a good or a bad thing that we have this new technology and it's going to change the way that we think? My question is, what skills should we learn now? And how will that change as the years progress with this? And I think, like I said earlier, it's not about knowledge retention anymore. So I'll give you an example. 20 years ago, when I started software engineering, I had a hyperlinked notebook that would house all my code snippets and how-tos and things like little things, changing the preferences on my Mac or something like that to do something special. I don't have to Google it. It was searchable on my own computer, and that was really, really effective. But now you can just ask ChatGPT for all those things, all those little snippets. So I had to step up one order above that and think, okay, so before it was about knowing where to find things in the library. And then it was about keeping notes that are organized that you can find things quickly. And then now it's like asking the right questions. I'm not even sure how to describe this new skill. Like I know people call it prompt engineering, but what is it really?
Yeah. Yeah. But I like on that one, I tend to now I'm reverting back to my skepticism and my poo-pooing, because even though I, just like everybody else, ask ChatGPT questions, like if I'm sitting at the dinner table and somebody, mentions something, and it's like, what is the difference between, cotija cheese and cojito cheese? I'll ask ChatGPT, because if I ask Google, a Google search, I'll get a bunch of links and I have to look through the links, and there are various quality and, I'm sitting there at the dinner table and I don't have time to be doing that. So I'll just ask ChatGPT, what's the difference? And it'll tell me, actually, it's just, it's cotija cheese and it's commonly mispronounced cojito cheese. Okay, great. Now I'm authoritative on this problem. But ChatGPT doesn't really know things, right? And we're constantly reminded of that. And the makers will remind you. It's been trained on knowledge, but it doesn't know the difference between guessing and knowing. It doesn't know. There's no difference for an LLM between guessing something plausible and saying something true. So I am very careful about using an LLM as a source of knowledge. I use it, try to remember, I'm asking it to produce a statistically plausible response or continuation of whatever I've put in front of it. Anybody disagree with that take?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to double check. Sometimes I ask the same question to 2 or 3 different LLMs, and so that makes me more sure that the answer is more likely to be accurate, to get a second opinion from LLM itself or different LLMs.
Yeah, I never take it as authoritative. I use it as like I use my notebook, the hypertext notebook that I made. It's a reference. It tells me where to look because ultimately usually I want to look at the source. Usually I want to look at like the documentation for an API or something like that. But I ask ChatGPT to kind of point me in that right direction. Sometimes it points me in the wrong direction, but for the most part, it gives me the general idea of where to look. I think, okay, so I guess I can reframe this as my progression in learning with technology was before the internet and everything like that. It was going to the library. And then after the internet is searching and also keeping track of your own searchable documents on your own computer. And now that search engine is ChatGPT or one of these LLMs. So, but it's a creative search engine. It can make permutations of the things that you throw at it and give you new things to research that you didn't think about researching before.
So you were talking a little bit earlier about skills and the new skills. And I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later when we go through some of the items that we wanted to bring up. It did remind me a little bit. I just want to pull on the thread a little bit more about when a technology is new and everybody's excited about it. Some people, just because you're interested doesn't mean necessarily that you're skilled, and we hear AI slop, for example, all the time. And I have to say, it's a bit irritating to me, like how oftentimes people will ask me to read something that they didn't bother writing, and it's so clearly written by AI. It's hard not to feel a little insulted by that, right? It's like, wait a second, you want me to spend the time reading something that you didn't spend the time writing, and it's not even particularly well written. It's written, AI can probably, write better than a lot of people can, but it's so telltale, right? And it seems like you're using it wrong. If you're just telling it 2 things and having it generate an essay for you and then asking other people to read your essay or the AI's essay, it feels like you're using it wrong. Do you think that?
Oh yeah. I'm quite annoyed by people using AI to write papers and write grants and things like that. It gives AI a bad name and it pollutes the information ecology. All these academic papers that are basically generated with a questionable merit and coherence. But if you read it at a surface level, it looks like a paper. So you just read the abstract and think, okay, this might be true or this thesis might be useful. But the whole thing was generated without a lot of thought. That's quite dangerous in the scientific community. And I imagine it makes a mess in the grant writing community where reviewers had to look at these proposals and who knows what people actually put considerations to these things. They look like they have consideration because they used all the right words and the right syntax, but is there any meaning behind it?
It requires a ton of effort to extract and to analyze that for meaning. And it feels somewhat unfair at base level that the analyzer has to put in the effort instead of the synthesizer. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the side effect of AI. A lot of students are writing papers in universities, and some students write it on their own and they get called out by teacher that, hey, you used AI. That also happens because teacher is suspecting honest students as well. And also I've heard jokes that one person writes a paper with AI and other person uses AI to grade it, and nobody writes it, nobody reads it. It's just zeros and ones in the middle. A score is given.
Yeah. The same thing happens in the job market. People are complaining a lot. They ask you to write a cover letter. They ask you to customize your resume for every job that you apply to. But then in the end, it's some ATS system that's going to read your thing and you could get rejected by a computer before a human ever sees you. That seems like an unfair imbalance. And so there's a lot of companies that are like, hey, man, we'll use AI to apply for jobs. And then people are like, hey, don't use AI to apply for the job. We want you to put the effort into applying. Dude,
Yeah.
this asymmetry is not cool.
Yeah, and there's asymmetry, but there's also arms races. Like you just mentioned, teachers and students. I'm working in a medical startup or a health analytics startup. And one of the problems is doctors aren't getting paid for operations that are medically necessary because some AI system says it's not necessary. So other companies use AI to generate justifications to fight against the AIs that judge against those. So there's going to be an arms race there. And it's just so ridiculous. It's like the worst version of Skynet.
Yeah. It's funny, Skynet was mentioned in that Twitter thread to Boris, but go check it out. I'll put a link to the tweet down there, but maybe this is a good segue to move over to our What's New segment, because, we're enthusiasts and we find new things and we want to share them with everybody. And so why don't we segue to the thing that you mentioned, Anthony, about job skills?
Yeah. So I've been listening to, let me see, what's his name again?
Nathan?
Yeah, Nate B. Jones.
Nate B. Jones. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good videos.
And he's talking about how new skill sets are required in this AI age. We touched on it a little earlier. Knowledge retention is not so important so much as orchestration and management, as Karandeep was saying. I'm going to harp on taste again, and I'm trying to figure out how to define it. It's something about knowing the right direction to go, because an AI can produce permutations of everything and anything, and a lot of it can be useless. A lot of it can be, it might sound tasteful, but when you actually taste it, it doesn't do anything. It's not nutritious. It doesn't really benefit you or anyone. Another skill that he brings up is evaluation. So you don't have to actually produce something that's completely robust on the first go, but you have to know what you want. And then when you ask the AI to report back to you, you have to know how to judge whether it's close to what you want or not, and what areas it is failing, what areas where it's not as robust. So just getting acclimated with the failure modes of AI is important.
It creates a catch-22, I think, because a lot of the things that you just ran off are things that experienced people have, that judgment, that knowing what should be done, that understanding of how to evaluate good from bad and all that stuff. That is something that you develop over time doing a job, which we're now saying, all right, the skill now is going to be to leverage your experience to help guide the AI. How does somebody get to that level if the AI is doing? So I've heard this mentioned several times where people are saying, where are how are we going to get senior engineers if we only have junior engineers? How are we going to get lawyers if we never get paralegals? How do we get, what happens to apprenticeship? What happens to the junior stages of a person's career? Is it going to be a situation where like a population collapse, happens where, the birth rate drops and eventually everybody gets old? And then are we going to get to that situation with skills where there's going to be a bit of a population collapse of experienced skills people and nobody left to come in and backfill them when they retire? Nobody?
Yeah, that's a possibility that I've been thinking about it as well. And that's been a hot topic of discussion in some of the meetups as well. So if I were to give my optimistic opinion in this, I think I would think of that AI might eventually get good at training people and help them get there even without real life practical experience. It might be a new way of learning things. Like Notebook LM has nice like flashcards, mind maps, video presentation that cuts down the learning time significantly. And these things are getting better and better every year, like significantly better. So I'm hoping that some fast way of learning will evolve, which can improve the skills of younger people, younger generation, and fill the void and bring some equality in skills and career opportunities.
I think just judging from the image synthesis community, new ways of thinking, new ways of learning and management are coming about. These people that are doing image generation, they don't know a lot about programming, but they know a lot about the different nodes and workflows used to produce images. And it's a guessing game mostly, but there are a lot of people in these communities that are guessing really hard. I mean, they're spending hours on this stuff, and they're producing really, really good workflows. They don't really understand how the nitty-gritty stuff works, but they know when it doesn't work. So this is what I meant by understanding failure modes. And this is something that you get through experience. Okay, so you say, what are we going to do when we don't have junior developers that don't know how to make a linked list or something like that? Well, we don't need that. Well, that's already been made. We're just going to use those as building blocks. Just like these image synth people, they're just using all these nodes as building blocks to what they want to produce. And when they notice something isn't working, they're going to tell their community, hey, this thing isn't working. And they put pressure in the community. They put demand on the communities to develop something there. So somebody goes in and nerds out on that one particular module and then serves it up to the rest of the community in an AI digestible way. So we talked about this before, Rashad, about, this is the calculator problem. Like calculators made us forget multiplication tables and such. But then there's higher order problems that we want to solve. And when those higher order problems aren't able to solve, or when we're working on those higher order problems and we figure out we need a more low level solution, there are going to be some like Tiger team specialists that are going to go in and fix it and give the module to the rest of the community.
Yeah. I tend to agree. And maybe this is, sometimes I worry that I'm naively optimistic, but I tend to think that experience is the skills, what we think of as basic skills are always going to be the skills that helped us become successful people in the world as it existed. And so that doesn't necessarily translate to the skills that become basic in the world as it's becoming. And yes, if all electricity goes out and all computers fail, the people that know how to do mental math will probably be better off than the people that don't. It's probably true also that if there's a massive solar event and then, everything shorts out, that people who know how to build a fire will be better off than people who don't know how to build a fire. But that's not the likely world that awaits us around the corner. So basically, somebody who's got fire building skills has got a skill set that is going to be a basic skill set in a pretty small percentage of future possible worlds. Whereas somebody who knows how to use a calculator very effectively is better off in today's world than somebody who doesn't. Like people who know how to use GPS. I mean, it's a basic, it's almost like old-fashioned at this point, but there's still people that don't know how to use GPS, who don't know how to use Google Maps. But those people have excellent, mental map making skills. They know how to navigate. They know how to read a paper map. They know how to use an atlas. And those people, they have a skill that a lot of people today don't have. But the people who know how to use Google Maps, they can fly to a city they've never been to and drive around like they were born there. And in today's world, that is a more valuable skill than knowing how to use an atlas. And I have to think that what's going to happen is that the new generation of people that's coming up is going to have the skills that are basic for achieving success in the world as it exists today, rather than the world as it existed before. And I'm not necessarily in a good place to be able to evaluate what those new skills are. That life will teach us what those new skills are. Yeah, that's what I think. All right. So something else we found, I think, Karen, this is like a different thing, but you mentioned that there's been some big movements in the agentic space and some acquisitions. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So the two companies that caught my interest quite a bit this year in 2025, past year, was Manos AI and GenSpark. They're super agents that you just give it a goal and it will fire like 20 or 50 prompts and get the stuff done. And it could be sending emails or making a call on your behalf and setting an appointment at a restaurant or a doctor's office. And I just heard like a few weeks ago that Meta acquired Manos AI for over $2 billion. And just about 6 months ago, their valuation was $500 billion. So they bought it at 4 times higher price of previous valuation. So huge money flowing in there. GenSpark is another company which was growing very fast. And both of these companies are just 2 to 3 years old, and they're multi-billion-dollar businesses. And that kind of relates to the hype, like partial hype as well, that in 2-3 years, billion-dollar companies are being built. So it also creates a lot of excitement and enthusiasm to learn what's going on in this AI world. Another interesting news that I've been following for a few months is N8, which helps user build AI agents in more graphical user interface with less coding and just drag and drop. So a lot of people are doing side gigs on that, charging a couple of $1,000s to different businesses and automating their workflows. So it could be short-term opportunity or not. I don't know. It's yet to decide, because then there are other websites too where you give it a prompt and it automatically connects different tools. So I'm following that. The third interesting news I was following was that as Google is integrating Gemini into various tools, so in Google Maps, so Gemini can read the user reviews as well. So for example, in Google Maps, if I type in Indian restaurant, and if I scroll further down, like 2-3 screens down, it will automatically categorize it to South Indian food, North Indian food, or vegetarian Indian food based on the common terms that people have searched for. So it has a deeper understanding of user intent, and will even show some of the pictures which are more liked, which can give ideas to user on what they might be interested in eating.
So I'm going to talk about the Manus thing a little bit more, because I remember a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, Manus really made waves, right? And it was around the same time as DeepSeek was making waves. It was part of the whole kind of like North American AI industry waking up to the fact that there was some really cool things happening in China.
Yes.
And people were talking about like Manus, like they had solved agentic AI, and that this agent really, they're calling it a super agent because it seemed like it could do anything. Did you ever play with it?
Yes, I did explore it. It was slightly overhyped initially as we were talking about it. I think their marketing videos were really good. Got people excited because they were showing like a bunch of different screens on the video on the phones, and it seemed like it was just operating on its own. But when I used it, the accuracy was not there. It was about 70-80% accurate. So it'll work for a lot of cases, but you still needed human in the loop. So it got people excited, a hype, but it was still useful than not using it. So I think that's what caused them to success, towards success.
Why do you think Meta bought them?
That's very interesting question. My thoughts around, I mean, my personal use cases was like in last 1 year, I've gone to maybe over roughly around 100 tech events or AI events in Bay Area, and most of them were found by Manus. I'll have a prompt in there. I'll say these are my filters. Go to meetup.com, eventbrite.com, and find the tech events around Mountain View area, which will be good for me to attend. And it will create a list and will also generate a website within 5 minutes, and really nice, fancy looking website. It can even draw charts and graphs if he asks it to research on a certain product. So I think they did great things, and that would tie back to why Meta bought it, because they've been investing a lot into their super intelligence team, or the team. And this seems to be one of the best products that I saw in the market that has the best promise for our future, and which was best so far as well, because they had so much integration into tools like Gmail, Google Calendar, making a phone call, creating a podcast out of any topic you're searching.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it sounds a lot like GenSpark too, right? I saw a demo once from Kay Zhu, who I think is one of the co-founders, and it was very capable of long-running workflow, calling all sorts of tools, and it seemed to be aimed at the end user.
Yes, yeah.
I wonder though, I mean, Meta, I just wonder what their plan is, to bundle it into Instagram or into WhatsApp, something like that, so that you can do all these types of things from within WhatsApp, maybe?
Yeah, that, and also they're coming with the new glasses as well, with the screen inside the smart glasses. So maybe you could just ask it or give it a task and it'll just perform it and give you notifications while you're just taking a walk in the park. For example, just plan my day and show me on my smart glasses and or make appointments and show me the list of things I need to do. We'll just pretty much integrating the whole life so with AI.
That's interesting. Yeah, you mentioned N8N also, and last time Anthony and I, we kind of started a project for building an agent for one of his use cases. Anthony makes me think that maybe we should give N8N a try for, as the platform on it, see how it goes. I myself, I've built probably 100 agents and have never used N8N. It's all been primarily Python coding for me. I've never used any of the no-code agent builders, except for the one that we have at my job at Fabrics AI. We have a no-code agent builder that's mostly meant to target enterprise type of use cases, so it might not be the ideal for the demo that we're trying to do. But maybe we should try N8N.
Yeah, sure. It's it's web-based, so it might be compatible with my old computer here.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we're almost ready to wrap up here, but there's a couple of tools and a couple of things. Like, speaking of Meta, I saw an announcement that they had recently here for a platform for root cause analysis. This was posted December 19th, 2025. Let me see if I can share my screen here. I'll share this. It's a root cause analysis platform. It caught my eye because I have root cause analysis is a use case that I run into a lot. And the reason I find it interesting is that it's a framework that it's not an agent. It's an infrastructure on top of which agents can operate. And I really think that a lot of the power of AI agents actually lives in the tooling layer. And what I liked is that they have this SDK where they can define what they're calling troubleshooting playbooks. And what they're building is they're componentizing something called an analyzer. See how they have this chain of analyzer here. So bootstrap a new analyzer, update, build, and test the analyzer, code review. So this is all about these analyzers. And what I would like to see, and I haven't delved into it yet, but I'm not sure yet if I'm going to try to use this framework or if I'm going to try to build one. Let's see here. But I think that the idea of having a facility called an analyzer that you can then instruct with certain domain knowledge, certain procedures, workflows for troubleshooting a specific type of problem, that's just generally useful. And I like the idea of building it as a facility rather than doing it on a use case by use case basis. I mean, it's pretty nerdy, and I don't know how interesting it is to everybody, but it certainly caught my attention. And the other thing that caught my attention was this other toolkit. This is something I saw posted on Reddit, and it is, let's see if I can bring that one up. It's called Transcript API. And this is actually pretty cool because this is a very common use case. People are using AI to build knowledge bases that are increasingly made up of information that was transmitted, through a YouTube video or through a podcast episode like this, or through, the recording of some sort of a meeting. And there's a lot of content that's coming out of these things in the form of transcript. And the engineer who posted about this said that one of the problems that they have is transcripts are not necessarily optimized for LLMs. They're not really, certainly not optimized for RAG, for retrieval augmented generation. One of the key things that makes retrieval augmented generation work well is a chunking strategy. You take the information that you want to be able to pull up using a vector search, and you make sure that you're creating it in the chunks that make sense so that there's enough context there for the vector to be semantically relatable to the query. That actually turns out to be kind of hard. It's not something trivial anyway. And there's content as well in the transcripts that isn't particularly useful. Like transcripts tend to have a lot of time codes and a lot of timestamps, and those are kind of not that relevant to the vector search. So what this toolkit does is it looks at the transcript, it corrects, it removes hesitation words, it does a lot of things like this podcast software is going to do. Remove the stammering and the ums and whatever. It condenses it. It tries to correct any obvious mistakes in the transcription so that the things that are being said make sense, because a lot of times they don't. And it keeps the timestamps to logical like chunk blocks. So it'll mark the timestamp of the beginning of something I say, and just call that good until the next thought is communicated, and then chunks those things like that. And they're basically offering this as an API, but it's on GitHub, so you can use it yourself. And I'm pretty sure I am going to use this as a shortcut for chunking and vectorizing transcripts, meeting transcripts in my case. So
yeah, that sounds really useful.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
I was just thinking about a dark pattern or a negative use case of it. You know how people on YouTube ask AI to generate a script for them? This is the other end of it where it reduces it back down to the bullet points.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of is. I mean, yeah. RAG has been, a promise and a nightmare, and it kind of like goes back. Maybe that brings us back full circle to the hype, a discussion where there was such a hubbub about RAG and how it was going to solve everything. And then people started trying to use it and they realized, well, yes, but it's hard, and there's different RAG schemes that people will come up with. So I think this is another one of those things where, yes, it's horrible. Yes, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the theme of our episode here is it the death of expertise? Yes and no.
Yeah, I'm reminded of Elasticsearch. Remember that? Kind of democratizing search, but it was hard to set up well. I worked on some sites that had, like, if you typed in more than one word, it's going to do a union rather than an intersection of the words by default. And they just kept it at that. So the search was unusable. So I bet RAG is the same way. If you just use the defaults without any tweaking, any checking, then it's not going to be useful.
Yeah. There's a lot to it. There's the dimensions of the embedding model that you use, whether it's too many dimensions or not enough dimensions for the kind of content that you have, where your chunking is happening, what do you index, if anything, so that you can do hybrid searches. And it's actually a really complicated thing, but I like to see people who are developing use case specific abstractions, because I just have this belief that an abstraction is use case centric, that, like you don't know what to abstract unless you know what you're trying to do. And so whenever somebody comes up with some abstraction that serves a use case, I'm like, as long as the use case resonates, I'm all in. So any final thoughts before we wrap it up for today?
Yeah, I'm just curious to catch up on more news on what are the promises of AI and how they actually deliver. I think some of the interesting news I've been following was in healthcare. AI is detecting cancer like 1 year prior to human doctors can identify. X-rays are being read by AI in terms of better accuracy than humans. So I'm super excited about how fast the hospitals are going to adopt these systems so that we see tangible improvement in life expectancy and human quality of life.
Yeah.
That's something I'll be looking to research this upcoming week or two.
Nice. Bring that to the podcast. We talk about it. Yeah. Any last words, Anthony?
No, that's it for me.
All right. Okay. Well, cool. This was really fun. So I hope everybody enjoyed the episode. Please give us your feedback, and you have to like and subscribe, right? That's what people say. Like and subscribe. All right.